Hi, folks. This is Bill Johnson. Good to have you all on this evening. We're going to get started here in just a second. Looks like we've got quite a few people joining the call. Lots to talk about, so please don't hang up. We'll get started here in just a moment. Thanks for joining us. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us this evening. My name is Bill Johnson, and as you probably know by now, I'm running for Congress. Tonight, we're going to be conducting a live toll-free town hall right here over the telephone. And if this is your first telephone town hall meeting, let me explain to you a little bit how this works. I'm going to be live right here on the line for the entire duration of the call. You will not be talking to a staff member or to anyone else. It will be me live. You're going to be able to ask me questions, any question that you'd like. In fact, you can go ahead and start queuing yourself up to ask questions right now. All you have to do to ask a question is press 0 on your keypad. That'll put you into the question queue. And then you'll get right back into the call, and you'll be able to hear all the other questions as well. So just press 0 at any time, and it'll put you into the question queue. As we go along in the call, I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions as well, just to sort of stimulate our discussion and keep the call moving along. And you'll be able to respond to those questions by pressing the numbers on your keypad. Again, if you would like to ask a question about any topic that's of a concern to you, just press 0 on your telephone keypad and we'll take your question and then get you right back into the call. Folks, these telephone town halls are a great way for you and me to have a very honest and open discussion about the issues that are important to you and about what's going on here in America. Tonight, I'm going to start off by talking about some things that I've heard a lot about throughout the district. The threat of the ISIL terrorist group in the Middle East, the effects of Obamacare on you and your families, and the need for energy independence. Remember, you can ask me a question anytime just simply by pressing 0 to get into the queue. You can also learn more about my position on the issues by visiting my website at www.BillJohnsonLeads.com, and you can find me out on Facebook as well by searching Bill Johnson Leads. Before I get started, though, before we start taking questions, let me ask you a question, and that'll sort of get us started. Which political party do you most accurately identify with? On your keypad, if you're a Republican, press 1. If you're a Democrat, press 2. If you're an independent, press 3. That just sort of gives me an idea of who we're talking to. We're going to get started taking callers here in just a second. And again, if you would like to ask a question, just press 0 on your keypad, and that'll put you into the question queue. Let's go to our first caller down in Salem, and we'll talk to Jack. Jack, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Bill?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Have you got my question?
Why don't you state your question, Jack, so that everybody on the phone hears it?
Okay, I will do that. My question is this: we've seen what the administration has done in view of Ebola, the Ebola virus, and it seems like they've opened up our country. Bill, do you have any feelings as to what we should do as far as eliminating flights from Africa in order to protect our people here from what could be a out-of-control pandemic? Go ahead, Bill.
Jack, I really appreciate you bringing that question up. You know, just by way of a little bit of a history, I don't know how many of our callers are aware or not, but we faced a very similar situation here in America and across the world in 1917. In fact, it is shocking when you think about the parallels that exist today. In 1917, Russia was on the move in the Ukraine. They were trying to advance their territorial boundaries by taking over the Ukraine. War was breaking out in Europe. The president at that time, Woodrow Wilson, had told the American people that there would be no boots on the ground. And at the same time all of that was going on, a deadly outbreak of another virus occurred that killed millions across the globe and thousands here in America. It was the influenza virus. And we had a very similar situation that we've got today, Jack, in that the administration under Woodrow Wilson tried to reassure the American people, don't worry, we've got everything under control. The truth of the matter is they didn't have everything under control, and at the peak of that virus outbreak, upwards of 600 Americans a day were dying from the influenza virus, what is now known as H1N1. So, look, I don't know what we don't know. And I'm not going to presuppose to know more than our medical experts do. But this is what I do know. I know that our president has the responsibility to do everything in his power to take responsible action to make sure he protects the public health and public safety of the American people. And Jack, that's why I am suspending my campaign activities this week, and I'm going back to Washington on Thursday to participate in a Energy and Commerce Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee hearing to talk to the director of the Center for Disease Control about this exact situation. Because here's what I want the president to do. I don't want the president to guess. I don't want the president to assume anything. Just like I want the president to talk to and listen to our military commanders about how to handle the ISIL situation in the Middle East, I want the president to also listen to our healthcare experts and take their advice on how to protect the American people from this deadly virus. And until we know what we don't know, and those things that we don't know, the Center for Disease Control and the administration need to be very forthcoming with the American people. For example, Jack, we have no idea how this healthcare worker in Dallas contracted the virus. She followed, according to her statements, she followed the protocol that was given to her. She was in a hazmat suit. So the question is, how did she get the virus? And are there ways that this virus can spread that our medical experts don't yet know about? And I don't think anything is off the table, from stopping flights from those affected countries to testing at the border and at airports. Whatever it's going to take, that's what the administration needs to do to make sure that the American people are protected from this deadly virus. We don't need a repeat of what happened in 1917. So I understand your concerns, Jack, and I'll know more after I go to that hearing on Thursday, and I appreciate you asking that question. Folks, I'm going to ask you my question again, because we've had quite a few people that have joined the call. Which political party do you most identify with? On your keypad, please tell me. If you're a Republican, press 1 on your keypad. If you're a Democrat, press 2. If you're an independent, please press 3. So thanks a lot. I appreciate that feedback. It just kind of gives us an idea who we're talking to, and I appreciate that. We're going to go to our next caller down in Columbiana County and talk to Nelson. And before Nelson tells us what his question is, again, if you want to ask a question, just press 0 on your keypad and you'll be put into the question queue. Nelson, how you doing? Good to talk to you tonight.
Governor Johnson, I'm doing well. I've got something to thank you for. I called with concerns about Medicare and the Obamacare and health insurance, which my wife has MS. She's been given MS insurance for $160 a month. She's also got letters from them that says it's going to increase dramatically next year. We can't afford the $160 a month. Now they want 4 months in advance payment. And I want to thank you for your secretaries calling to me and offering me help and sending information in the mail. First of all, thank you.
Well, you're welcome, Nelson. I appreciate that very much. You raised this issue on our last telephone town hall, right? Okay, I think we lost you there, Nelson. My apologies, but thank you so much for those kind words. And we're going to go to Patricia down in Portsmouth. How you doing, Patricia? What's on your mind?
A lot's on my mind. I want to know how you all are going to stop the president from absolutely destroying this country. And also how you're going to stop this bull that if a military person has been in combat, he says they can be cured in 2 years. I know Vietnam vets are still climbing the walls.
I'm sorry, Patricia. State that again. If you've been what for 2 years?
I said I know for 2 years. President Obama said that anybody that was in combat and got wounded didn't need to see a therapist more than 2 years. At 2 years, they were healed.
Well,
I know people that's 30-some.
Yeah, Patricia, I certainly understand what you're saying, and I share your concerns. It's healthcare providers that need to be determining how our veterans are treated, not some arbitrary rule coming out of Washington. I'm a veteran myself of 26 and a half years, and I think that is one segment of our society that we owe a great debt of gratitude to. We owe them our commitment to meet the commitments that we made to them to provide them the care and benefits that they've earned. And I'm going to continue to fight to make sure that we do. That's why I supported the legislation that would, for any veteran that lives more than 40 miles away from a health care facility or has been waiting on a waiting list more than 30 days, they can go see a private health care provider of their choice, and then the government picks up the tab. I think that that's the right way to go about this. There's much more that's needed, though, because the VA is oftentimes a faceless, uncaring bureaucracy. There are pockets of excellence in the VA, and I know that many veterans are happy with the care that they get there, and I'm glad that that's the case. But if we have even one of our veterans that doesn't get the care that we've committed to them, then that's a problem. And we know it's far more than one. It's hundreds and thousands that are waiting on waiting lists to get in to see physicians. So I share your concern, Patricia, and I'm going to continue to work that issue. That's why I enjoyed and am so happy with the work that we did sitting on the as the chairman of the Oversight Investigation Subcommittee from 2011 and 2012. Much of what you see coming out about the VA today is a result of the work that my subcommittee investigative staff did and we're going to continue to work on that. And I appreciate you bringing that question up. Let's ask the question again. I asked you folks a question just a few minutes ago. Let me ask it one more time. Please tell me by punching the keypads on your phone. If you're a Republican, press 1. If you're a Democrat, press 2. And if you're an independent, press 3. That just kind of gives me an idea of the cross-section of the district and who we're talking to. This information is not used for anything. But let's go to our next caller now, and we'll talk to Dwayne. Hi, Dwayne. How are you doing?
Yes, Congressman Johnson?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Dwayne McFarland, a veteran, and I'm pretty satisfied with the care here at Cambridge, Ohio, and southeastern Ohio. But,
well, good.
And I believe you was a major. Wasn't you a flyboy?
I retired as a lieutenant colonel, and yes, I did fly for a little while. Yeah.
Oh, did you? Well, thanks for your service. But Congressman Johnson, I've spoken to you once before, but I know about the health care and everything. I've been listening to the town hall meeting, but you know what I think is as great, if not greater, threat than the Ebola there, and that is our open border on the Mexican border. We should have sealed that off 4 presidents ago. I don't see why we don't. My understanding is there's been some of the ISIS group already come through the border. MS-13 has helped smuggling illegals and back to the health care in the United States and with this thing from West Africa. What about the all the stuff brought in from the children down there in Guatemala and these places, scabies and TB and everything, and now they're being inserted into our schools with our children. I mean,
I don't mean to cut you off, Dwayne, because we want to let as many people ask questions as they can. I understand your concerns, and I share your concerns. Border security has got to be the number one priority when you talk about immigration reform of any kind. I don't know if you're aware or not, Dwayne, but we actually passed legislation last July that would put the National Guard on the borders, our southern borders. It would increase the number of border security personnel. It would provide funding for additional judges to more quickly adjudicate these cases of these kids and get these kids back to their home countries and to their parents, because we've actually talked to the presidents of these countries where these children are coming from, and they want their children back. Look, this is not the kind of situation that should be politicized. There's a right way and a wrong way to come to America, and just flooding across our border illegally is not the right way. And I support securing our borders, and we've told the president to do that. And that's why it is so important, Dwayne, that we get some help in the Senate, because that bill that we passed to secure our borders, it is sitting languishing in the Senate right now today. And you talked about the disease that's coming across with these children, and that is true. Imagine what's going to happen when we start seeing Ebola patients, perhaps, coming across the border. It's a real concern, and I share your concern, and we're going to continue to press the president to act on the legislation that we've already passed and secure our borders. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Hey, if you want to ask a question, folks, just press 0 on your keypad. That'll put you into the question queue, and then we'll get you right back into the call. Here's another question for you, though. You know, we're 3 weeks today from election. So my question to you is, how do you plan to vote in this year's November 4th election? On your keypad, press 1 if you plan to vote absentee by mail. On your keypad, press 2 if you plan to vote early at your county board of elections. On your keypad, press 3 if you plan to vote at your polling location on election day. Press 4 if you do not plan to vote at all. It's important that you vote. And for any of you that said you don't plan to vote, I certainly hope you'll reconsider, because your voice does matter. That's exactly why I have these telephone town hall meetings, because I believe in trying to solve problems. And if you're going to solve problems, I believe you have to listen. And that's why we have these dialogues, so that I can understand the problems. Let's go talk to Gene down in Zanesville. Hi, Gene.
Yes, Congressman, thank you for taking my call. You have answered my initial question. I'm going to change just a little bit on you.
Okay.
The Speaker of the House has been a disappointment. I'm a senior, and there's a number of us that sit over coffee and discuss different things that's taken on in our country here. But he's been a disappointment. What, and maybe you don't want to say anything, but as conservative sounding that you are, Bill, and I believe you are, I believe you're very sincere what you're doing, but just what is the relationship with the Speaker of the House when we're a conservative? What is that relationship? It just seems that he has turned his back on different things that the House would like to pass, and cohorting with the other side, and having these 3 o'clock parties and all of that. It's a disappointment. So.
Yeah, Gene, let me try to respond to some of that, because what you're describing is how the media tries to portray the Speaker of the House. Now, I'm gonna tell you that I haven't voted in support of the Speaker every time. He and I have disagreed, and when I have had to stand on my conservative principles, he has given me the respect to do that. He has never once came to me and twisted my arm and tried to make me vote one way or another. But let me give you a scenario that you might not be aware of. What you see on television about the Speaker of the House is like watching the 12th round of a boxing match. You don't get to see the other 11 rounds. You don't get to see, for example, how many times, weeks and weeks, sometimes several months ahead of time, the Speaker has tried to advance a conservative position within our House, Republican House caucus, to put us in the best position to try and force the Senate to act and the President to lead. The media doesn't show you that. And each and every time that the Speaker tries to put forth a plan to do that, and it fails, we get weaker and weaker and weaker. And by the 12th round, all you see is what the media wants you to see. Let me paint you another picture, and I think you can get this one. We are the majority party in the House of Representatives, but we are not the majority party nationally, because we do not control the Senate and we do not control the White House. So picture this scenario. When the Speaker of the House goes to the White House to meet with the President and talk about what we're going to do and how we're going to advance conservative principles and put America back on the right track, the Speaker of the House sits down on one side of the table, and on the other side of the table, there sits a very liberal Democratic President, Barack Obama, his liberal ally, Vice President Joe Biden, his liberal ally, Majority Leader in the Senate, Harry Reid, and ultra-liberal Minority Leader in the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi. It is a 4-to-1 battle. And the only leverage that the Speaker of the House has is the number 218. That's the magic number to pass any legislation to get it over to the Senate, because it takes at least 51% of the votes in the House to do that, and 218 represents that number. So you can see the frustration that we have. If we can't get 218 votes within our Republican conference, because no matter what the issue is, it's either not conservative enough for this group, or it may be too liberal for this group, and ultimately the Speaker has a very, very difficult time trying to come to a consensus. It is not easy to lead and to govern. If the Speaker were to take the route of the President, he would just simply pick and choose those issues that he wants to deal with, and he would forget about all the rest of them. Because what the President has done is that he has decided which issues he's willing to take a position on, and those are the only issues that he allows Harry Reid in the Senate to bring forth to his desk. And what that ultimately results in is the over 387 pieces of legislation that now sit idle in the Senate that has already passed the House. So all I can say to you is I'm not going to try to defend the Speaker to you. I understand your frustration with what's going on in Washington. I share that frustration, but it's not always the way the media tries to portray it. So I hope you'll consider that. Folks, let me ask you my question again. For those of you that didn't get a chance to answer, how do you plan to vote in this November 4th election? On your keypad, on your phone, press 1 if you plan to vote absentee by mail. Press 2 if you plan to vote early at your county board of elections. Press 3 if you plan to vote at your polling place in person on election day. And press 4 if you don't plan to vote. And of course, I certainly hope that you will vote. For those of you that are selecting option 4, I certainly hope you will get registered and reconsider. Let's go to our next caller, Sean, down in Tuscarawas County. And if you'd like to ask a question, folks, just press 0 and we'll get you into the question queue. Hi, Sean. How you doing, buddy?
Good, sir. Yourself?
I'm doing well. Tell us what's on your mind tonight.
I've been wondering about the ISIS, why we haven't took more action than we should.
I share your concerns. I agree with Secretary Hagel that ISIS or ISIL, as they have become known, is a threat to the civilized world. And here's the bottom line: the president is not listening to our military leaders. The president has chosen a course of action that is not producing results. I saw on the front page of the Wall Street Journal just last week that an article that said we may have slowed ISIS down, but we have not removed it from any territory. Now, the intelligence observers tell us that the city of Baghdad in Iraq is in danger of falling into the hands of ISIS. Let me remind you that in 2010, Vice President Joe Biden said this. He said that Iraq would be one of the crowning achievements of this administration. Do we think that today? Because when the administration came in 2009 and 2010, they had a pretty stable environment in Iraq. We were providing the security. The Iraqi people were moving closer and closer to a representative government, and now look what's happened. What is happening with ISIS, the rise of ISIS, and the advances that they've made is just an absolutely attributable to the president's failure to lead. Our military leaders, whether it's our former secretaries of defense, both Panetta and Gates, as well as some of our current active duty generals, have told the president this is not going to work. It took us 238 years to build the most powerful military on the planet. Why does anyone think that in 6 to 8 weeks that we can train a group of Syrian opposition forces to fill a void in an air campaign that America and a few allies are supposed to be creating. Folks, it's not going to work, and we better take action now and stop this ISIL group, or we're going to pay a big price later on down the road. I'm anxious to see what the president's next move is, but folks, the bottom line is he's the commander-in-chief. He's got to take action. I just urge the president to listen to our military leaders. He should do three things. Here's what the president should do. He should go to our chairman of the Joint Chiefs and our combatant commanders, and he should say, what do we need to stop ISIL in its tracks? And then take that information. He should then go and call a meeting. Number two, he should call a meeting with the Secretary of Defense and the majority leader in the House, the majority leader in the Senate, and the Speaker of the House, and he should say, okay, this is what our military commanders say that we need. This is what we're going to provide to them because we're going to stop ISIL, and we're going to stop them now. Number three, he should broaden our coalition with our partners around the globe because this is not just an American problem. We can't solve this alone, but we must lead on the issue. And that's wherein the failure occurs because this president has failed to lead. So I hope he'll start listening to our military leaders before it's too late. Let's go talk to Mike down in Coal Grove. Hi, Mike.
Yes, this is Mike down in Lawrence County.
How you doing, bud?
I spent 40 years in the oil industry, and I just retired from it for a refinery back in December. I hear a lot of people today on both sides of the aisle saying we can be less dependent on foreign oil sources, but a lot of people are agreed that you can't be totally independent. Even though I know that we can't be totally independent, but we could be totally independent of Middle Eastern oil. Well, with Canada and all the other nations that are on our same page, there's tremendous possibilities. But I want to hear one of our politicians say, not just through exploration and production, but with technology conservation, with every means at our disposal, I want to become energy independent, and I want to hear somebody lead that charge. And I want to know if there's anybody that thinks we can.
I'm with you, Mike. If you will contact my office, Mike, and let me give you a number. Here's the number. It's 740-562-4114. Call my office and ask for a copy of my Energy Vision 2020 video that I produced in January of 2013. Because I believe truly in an all-of-the-above energy policy. We need to use our coal resources. We need to be using our oil and gas resources. We need to be expanding our footprint on the nuclear front. And we even need to be using, as you just mentioned, let the market drive technological innovations in alternative fuels like wind and solar and biofuels, not at the taxpayer's expense, not by making the taxpayer subsidize it, but let's let the smart people in America, and trust me, we've got smart people in America that can figure these things out. We might solve some of those alternative energy problems using biofuels, hydro power, and energy conservation. You know, we work with a company, Quanex, up in Cambridge, that is an energy efficiency company. There's a lot that can be done to learn how to conserve energy and to use energy in ways that we've never even imagined. And I liken the opportunity to become energy independent and secure to the great space race that John F. Kennedy launched us off on in the early 60s. He said, we're not doing these things because they're easy. We're doing these things because they're hard, because we're going to discover things that we never thought were possible. And I believe that we can solve many of these big energy questions if we would just let the American people begin to innovate and let the market drive the solutions and get the regulators and the overtaxation coming out of Washington, D.C. off of the backs of businesses, and we would see more progress. I believe in an all-of-the-above energy policy, buddy. It sounds like you do too. I'm glad to hear that others are out there that share that view. Let me ask you my question one more time. For those of you that might not have had a chance to answer, how do you plan to vote in the November 4th election? On your keypad, on your phone, if you plan to vote absentee by mail, press 1. If you plan to vote early in person at your county board of elections, press 2. If you plan to vote in person at your polling place on election day, press 3. And if you don't plan to vote at all in the November 4th election, press 4. And if you're one of those that have decided that you're not going to vote, I sure hope you'll change your mind. Let's go to our next caller, and we'll talk to Winnie down in Salem. How you doing, Winnie?
Hi, Bill. Nice to speak with you again, and thank you for your service to our country. What I would like to know is, are you planning on backing any kind of legislation to get rid of the IRS and to either have a flat tax or maybe a combination of something? Because
you and I are on the same page, Winnie. You and I are on the same page. I've already sponsored legislation called Eliminate the Federal Tax Code, or the Tax Code Elimination Act, which eliminates the IRS, by the way, because I do believe that we've got to start over. We got to start with a clean sheet of paper. Today we've got the most onerous tax code in the free world. I don't have to tell you this. From the sound of your question, it sounds as though perhaps you know as much about this, maybe even more than I do, and that's a good thing. But at a 35% corporate tax rate, we are incentivizing businesses to move their operations overseas. It's just not going to work. At the turn of the century, our tax code was just a bare 300 pages long. Today, it is 75,000 pages long, and you folks have already seen all of the frustration that Americans are having with dealing with the IRS. It's another bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. that's out of control. So the short answer to your question, Winnie, is yes. I do support a total overhaul, major tax reform, and it starts with eliminating the federal tax code and the IRS. What we end up with needs to be something that's right for the American people, something that pays the bills but takes less from the American people. And that's what I'm looking forward to getting behind. Folks, if you'd like to ask a question, press 0. That'll put you into the question queue, and we'll get you right back into the call. Let's go talk to Ed down in Rio Grande. Hi, Ed. How are you, buddy?
Hello. Hello.
I'm here. Go ahead, Ed.
Well, it's Ted, T-E-D.
Oh, Ted. I'm sorry, Ted. They typed it in wrong, so I apologize. Tell us what your question is.
Well, you know, I sat here. I'm retired. I'm 68 years old. And I sat here and I watched this thing on Ebola. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? What in the world is going on in this country? We're letting 50,000 people a year come in here. We have no idea where they have Ebola. You know, all these things that you've talked about tonight's important. But if you're dead, what good's it going to do you?
Yeah, did you hear my response, Ed? Did you hear my response just a few minutes ago about the Ebola? Did you hear me talking about that? Because I don't want to repeat myself.
Tonight?
Yeah, did you hear me talk about that a little earlier?
Well, I don't guess, and I've been on here. I want the Congress or somebody out there saying, "Hey, stop these people."
Okay, well here's
what are we doing?
Yeah, here's what I said, Ed. This is an issue that the president needs to show leadership on. I'm going to be going. I can't suppose about hypotheticals. We don't know what we don't know. But I am suspending my campaign activities, and I'm going to Washington on Thursday to participate in a hearing, and we'll be questioning the director of the Center for Disease Control about just the kind of things that you're talking about. What do we know about Ebola? What do we not know? How did that nurse down in Texas, that healthcare provider, how did she contract Ebola when she supposedly followed all of the protocols? And it goes all the way back to what I said a little earlier. In 1917, we had a very similar situation with the outbreak of the influenza virus that killed thousands and thousands of Americans. At one time, 600 people a day were dying from the virus. And the federal government, the administration, said, hey, don't worry about it. We've got it under control. Well, I think we need to be cautious about assuming that everything is under control. And I think the president needs to exercise every option available to him to protect the public safety and the public health of the American people. And when I go back to Washington on Thursday, I'm going to be addressing just some of those issues. So I hope to know more after Thursday, but we'll address it on another call. But I'm with you. I'm very concerned about what the administration is not doing to protect us from the Ebola crisis. Let's go to our next caller, and we'll talk. Let's see. Are we asking our polling question again? We're going to ask our polling question one more time. How do you plan to vote on November 4th? Here we go. On your keypad, press 1 if you plan to vote absentee by mail. Press 2 on your keypad if you plan to early vote at your county board of elections. Press 3 if you plan to vote in your polling place on Election Day. Press 4 if you plan to vote or you don't plan to vote at all. And if you're one of those, I hope that you'll change your mind. We're going to go to our next caller right now, and we're going to talk to Michael in St. Clairsville.
Hello, Honorable Congressman.
How you doing, Michael?
Okay, I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing well.
My question is, I'm concerned about our competitive stance in the world economy. The neighbors of ours, like Canada, and trading partners like Japan had reduced their corporate tax rate way below the United States tax rate of 35% for corporations. And that's a double taxation on everyone that buys any product manufactured by an American corporation or a service provided by an American company. And I would like to know what you can do to get that conversation rolling. I mean, they need money to fund R&D. R&D is shrinking. The money is shrinking for R&D. The pharmaceutical industry that we need to support all of these diseases that are popping up, this 68 virus and Ebola and all the other things that we need. The pharmaceutical companies aren't going to be able to keep up if they don't have a competitive stance with the rest of the companies, their countries that we deal with.
Michael, I agree with you. That's why I'm fighting so hard for major tax reform. We've got the most onerous corporate tax rate in the industrialized world at 35%. You're right. Countries like Japan and Canada, they have long ago reduced their corporate tax rate, and that's why their economies are beginning to flourish. I'm all for it. I want to do major tax reform, but it's going to take a different president, and it's going to take a different majority leader in the Senate to get that done. It's not something the House of Representatives can do on our own. We have put forth plans, by the way, that would reduce taxes on the American people. In fact, we passed a budget in 2013 that made permanent low tax rates for all Americans. And we were only able to do that when we passed a piece of legislation called the No Budget, No Pay Act that required Congress to pass a budget or not get paid. I think if representatives and senators don't do their job, shouldn't get paid. I think you would agree with that. So we're on it, and I agree with you in what you said. Let's go to Lindsay down in Martins Ferry. Hi, Lindsay.
Hello, Congressman. I was just wondering if you could speak on the closing of the Ormat plant here in Hannibal, Ohio. And also I wanted to get your take on if you would get the chance to repeal the Affordable Care Act. What do you say to the maybe million Americans that have received insurance through this?
Sure, I'll be glad to respond to that. Let me answer the second question first. Absolutely, I would vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act. You know, there's a couple of things in that law that we should consider keeping, things like no exclusions for pre-existing conditions. I don't think insurance carriers should be able to deny coverage based on a condition that you can't do anything about. I also think children ought to be able to stay on their parents' health insurance policy until they're age 26, especially in this kind of economy when so many of our college young people are either unemployed or underemployed. They need an opportunity to get their feet underneath them. But the Affordable Care Act has resulted in millions of Americans losing their insurance, skyrocketing premiums. And these, I've got horror stories, and I can give you stacks of them. Yes, we've got people that have got insurance today that didn't have it before, but we have driven off millions of Americans that had health insurance policies that they liked, doctors that they liked, and they no longer have access to that insurance or to that doctor. And here's the biggest thing. The Affordable Care Act cut over $700 billion out of Medicare. $200 billion of that came out of Medicare Advantage, and over 32,000 Americans and seniors right here in eastern and southeastern Ohio are dependent upon that program, Medicare Advantage. I've got a piece of legislation that's working its way through the House right now called the Seniors Fairness Act that would eliminate a subsidy inside the Affordable Care Act and replace the $200 billion that the president cut out of Medicare Advantage. Look, I want every American to have access to quality, affordable health care. But having the federal government run health care is not the right way. When you've got unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., telling doctors what kind of care they can provide, what kind of treatments they can provide, what kind of prescriptions they can prescribe, that's not right. In fact, here's a good way to look at it. If you want to see what nationalized health care looks like, take a look at what's going on in the VA and the struggle that our veterans have had trying to get care. There are 350,000 people that work in the VA, and yet they cannot provide timely, quality health care to our veterans, our nation's heroes. I don't know about you, but I don't want to put my family into that situation. Now, my staff and I, we are all enrolled in Obamacare because that's the law. But like millions of Americans, I would much rather have more choices of my own and choices for my children and grandchildren to choose their own health care rather than have a federal government and a bureaucracy push a one-size-fits-all program from Washington, D.C. Now, let me go back and answer your first question. The Ormat closing. You know, nobody is more disappointed in what happened at Ormat than I am. I found out about the Ormat situation in early 2011. I met with the United Steelworkers in Washington, D.C., and that's when they told me about the situation. I went down and I toured the facility. I heard from the executive team. In June of 2012, I engaged with Governor Kasich and the Ohio Public Utilities Commission, Jobs Ohio, and AEP. And I brought them to the table because they had all sort of washed their hands of the whole Ormat situation. And I brought them back to the table, and I got Ormat an extension to try and resolve some of the problems that would keep them alive. And we were happy about that. I was disappointed when in June of 2013, I learned that Ormet had reached another roadblock and were about to shutter and close their facility. I again engaged with Governor Kasich. I wrote a letter to him and Governor Tomlin over in West Virginia asking both of them to intervene. I again tried to bring the Public Utility Commission and AEP to the table. And folks, it's a state issue, and I had no jurisdiction to make any of them do anything. But after the closing, I tried my best to keep it open. I did everything within my power to keep it open. In fact, I was the only elected official that did. And when it did finally close, my team, my staff, was at the transition center every single day, working with the governor's office to make sure that the people understood what their retirement benefits were going to be and what retraining options were available to them out there. And even when the leadership of the United Steelworkers objected that I do so, I brought the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, PBGC, to the table for a visit to the transition center for counseling. And many of you probably don't know this, but I paid out of my own campaign the money to get tax preparation training for the folks down at Ormet so that they could get their income tax paid. I don't know of anybody that did more to try and keep Ormet open and then to meet the needs of the people that were displaced once they were. I don't own the company. I don't have the jurisdiction nor the power to tell the governor what to do and what not to do. Nor do I have the power to tell the utility companies what they can charge and what they can't charge. But I did everything within my power to address the needs and concerns of the people that were working at Ormet. I wouldn't change a thing that I did. I wish we had been more successful. But the truth is, between the market pressures in the aluminum market, along with the skyrocketing cost of utilities and electricity, because that plant was the biggest single utility customer in the state of Ohio. And it was a problem that I simply could not resolve, but I gave it my best shot. Hope that answers your question. Folks, we are out of time, and but here's what I'd like you to do. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question, please give us a call. You can either leave a voice message on the line at the end of this call, or you can call us at 740-562-4114, and we'll take your question. You can also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/BillJohnsonLeads or on Twitter @JohnsonLeads. And I look forward to doing this again sometime. These are always great discussions. I appreciate all the questions. I know we don't always get to all of them, but we get to as many of them as we can in the hour that we have allotted. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this evening. We'll do this again very soon. Again, remember, call us if you have a question. 740-562-4114. God bless you and have a great evening.